Perek of Tehillim, Rav Temin.
Mizmor David, Adonai Ro'i lo yachzor. V'nois v'she yabitzeni, Amen v'nuchos v'nahaleini. Nafshi yishoyrei, Yancheni v'malet tzedek v'man shmoi. Am ki elech v'gei tzalmo ves v'yivoro ki ato v'modi. Shiv l'cho mishan tefo hemoy nachamuni. Habol v'konai shulchan neged tzevavoi v'shando v'shemen roishi kaisi revoyom. Achtoim go chesed yedefuni kol yemei chayoi v'shafti bebeis Adonai v'yorech yomim.
Please be seated. In every Levaya, there is a near impossible task. And that's to try to capture who first was with the number of his faith. In this case, it's so far beyond impossible. Not just because of the Arichas Yomim of the Nifter, and not even just because of the worlds, plural, that we lived in. So many worlds that we lived in. It's simply because of who he was. It is easy to focus today on the Arichas Yomim of the Nifter. You say that was so special about Rabbi Yankelewitz was that he had such unbelievable Arichas Yomim, and not just Arichas Yomim, he was here in Yeshiva. He was here in Yeshiva, he was still teaching. But the Hespedim will be to give us a sense, not just of how many years he was blessed to learn and to teach and to serve emotionally, but mostly in how he taught and learned in the serve emotion. We'll start with the president of Yeshiva University, Richard
There's four no comments. A bracha v'haklala ein shnei kitzavot. The bracha and the klala are two extremes. Re'ei shelo yiyu in yanecha bein shteihem. should see that there's no shared enterprise between them. Shalom tisnahei, the derech shel shora, that we not get accustomed to any kind of compromise. Ki yesh rak bracha v'klola, because there's only blessing and curse. Derech emtza'i ein. There's no middle way. For over half a century, Gershon Yankelewitz, taught us and shared with us derech bracha. His unique combination of anivut and yashrut influenced the environment of our yeshiva and all those who have inhabited it, who inhabit it, and who will inhabit it. His role as a key participant in a chevrashaft of Ramin and Roshei Yeshiva without compare is something that has inspired us all and leaves us all bereft. He was a constant reminder of Jewish history and Jewish destiny. His journey won from having met the Chofetz Chaim in Radin to his travels with Mir across the world to a half century and more, 60 years, teaching children in Salat Akiva, and I believe 56 or 58 years at Yeshivas Rabbi Yankelewitz. And he's taught them to follow that path, the path that is our story of triumph and our story to triumph. I just came from greeting the new parents because today is move-in day for our new students at Yeshiva University. So we're at Yeshiva College and at Stern College welcoming about 700 new students. And when we heard from the family that Rabbi Yankelewitz was nifter, I didn't want to just come out and say we would be honored to have his Levaya here, although we would be, but I didn't want to put any pressure. So when we both kind of said at the same time that it would be wonderful if Levaya would be here at this one of his homes, to me it became fitting that it would be on a day of much commotion, when hundreds and hundreds of young people were coming here to begin their learning and their growth, and how he would have savored knowing that he was sharing a day at the yeshiva with Talmidim that will continue. As with many, he impacted on my life and on that of my wife Esther. And our memories of him are those that I will treasure, even though I'm the newbie in town. I'm only 11 years, which is just a drop in the bucket of the tenure of Yankelewitz. But I wanted to just share briefly some of the things that I remember that mattered to me in a personal way. I began studying at the Yeshiva University High School in 1964. It was his last year as a Rebbe in MTA. And I was not in his shiur. But I remember seeing him, and I remember people even then talking about who he was. And I looked at how he carried himself, again, with yashrus and with modesty. And I knew I was in a special place. I remember the first meeting that I had with our Roshei Yeshiva when I was elected president. And I remember that at one point he asked for attention. And it was unlike him, I'm told, because many of our Rebbeim don't necessarily raucously speak at Roshei Yeshiva meetings, but he asked for attention, and Rabbi Lamb called on him, and he implored the new president and his colleagues to never forget how important Musar is to our children, and with passion, to never forget that it goes through the text to the context. And that was the first guidance he ever gave me. At a certain point, a few years ago, the yeshiva was visited by the Rishon Rabbi Mar. And we met with Rabbi Lamb in his office, and then we were going for him to give a semikhah here in the Beis Medrash. And on the way, I decided Rabbi Yankelowitz's office was outside that of Dr. Lamb. And I thought it would be meaningful to introduce the Rishon L'Tzion to Rabbi Yankelewitz. So we went down the hall and I knocked on the door. And he opened the door and we walked in, and in came Amar with the turban and the gowns. And I introduced him to Rabbi Yankelewitz and talked about who Rabbi Yankelewitz was. And Rabbi Yankelewitz was a little bit overwhelmed, and they greeted each other and they embraced and said goodbye, and he left. And then Rabbi Yankelewitz said, "You shouldn't have done that." I said, "Why?" He said, "I'm embarrassed that a man like that have to come out of his way to say hello to me." And I said, "You don't understand. You did it as a kavod to him." And it was a kavod to him. And Rabbi Yankelewitz didn't understand. And that says a lot to me. Each year, in the few days before Rosh Hashanah, despite each year my having warnings to him not to do it, somehow he showed up in my office on the 12th floor of Belfer Hall with no agenda, with no appointment, just coming to see me, to thank me and wish me a Shana Tova. Every year until this one. Every year. I remember 4 years ago at our Chag HaSmicha 4 years ago, his presence I always remember, but I remember him grabbing my hand in Amsterdam Avenue and dancing with me as we danced with all the Lubcza and the Mir Yeshiva down Amsterdam Avenue to the reception. And I kept being worried because this was a man who was over 60. I didn't want to share the semikhah. But yet he was insistent with a strength, with a great kawach. Our strongest memories were that of him and his rebbetzin. And who he, to me at least, always said, "I'm here with the missus." I'm here with the missus. And Esther and I have the privilege of hosting our Rosh Yeshiva and the rebbetzins every year for dinner in our home. And every year he would come, they would come, and they were the bells of the ball. But they had a great time, and they didn't hesitate telling us that they had a great time. And it was wonderful not just to hear from them, but to see them. Because we all aspire to that. That as a couple, we are one. We are not two separate. And they were one. And he came this past year for the last time, alone. And I also remember his grief when his partner left him. But I also remember that despite that, he said, "I have a job to do. I have a life to live." And he continued to do it with strength and with fortitude. The magic between them was wonderful. The last time I saw him was this summer, when we had a siyum for Kayat Spot. And not only did he come to the siyum, but he gave it for Torah. But I guess my strongest, most recent memory was last March of this year's Chag HaSmicha, where he was there, and he was sitting with all the other Rosh Yeshiva, and when the time came for us to call up each of the 260 Lubcza, he asked his colleagues on his left and his right to help him stand, so he could stand and shake hands with each of the 260 Lubcza, because that's who he was. That's who he was. So, ladies and gentlemen, at Yeshivas Rabbeinu Yitzchak Elchanan, we teach our Talmidim in many ways. In this base medrash, they learn to learn. On this campus, they live to learn a life of Torah values. We say farewell to Yeshiva's master teacher. He taught us how to learn and how to live and how to conduct ourselves with a life of Yashus.
By Dr. Lamb, Shlita, spent so many years working along Rabbi Yankelewitz. So we're honored to call now on Rav Chalab to say a few words.
action, the contribution, the personality, in altogether remarkable fashion in our issue. I want to tell you something about the president. I should begin this with you. He was the first one to notice when you heard the words of his, I want you to know that chemist, Anita. So Rabbi Yankelewitz used to, every day he came here, he would go to the corner, bent over his ears, and he would walk the 181st Street. And get a bus in 181st Street. Then he had to change for another bus. He was ready about 95, 96, 97, maybe 81. Don't remember exactly. And we all saw that. And no one thought for a moment, well, that's the natural way to go. What do you 96 and 97? 181st Street, it's a 6-block walk. Bend over. And then he had to go and change the bus again. So he came over and he said, what's going on? And he went to Rabbi Yankelewitz. He said, we're going to give you a taxi. Not that we call it a taxi. He gave him a number. And wherever he was, he never again had to go to a bus. And no one else would. Surely appreciate this. And he never began today. He said that we're not going to be dwelling on the years. We're not going to be dwelling on his years, but essentially he was born in 1909 and began a new world. Led to the first World War. His whole century is different in its greatness and its barbarity than probably any other century. Torah had reached a crest of sorts, even though we were great battles because of it. Their struggle and the new ways people look at things. But Torah reached it. That was a little going. Rabbi Yeshiva, and then Mir Yeshiva, he went to 3 yeshivas, he went to son. And then he went to Radin. He went to Mir. He always was proud of his. I would ask him, how many times did you see Chofetz Chaim? He said, about 3 years. He said, so only twice. I never saw it. Never saw me. If it was me, I said that was, he was sometimes learning together. I was playing Indian for him. But he was so very true. He spoke. He didn't say. It was a remarkable generation. And Torah has survived. And survived, of course. We were here before. Survived, of course. Mir Yeshiva. And I want you to kind of just begin that one of our fine being very close to me, Daniel Jerome, said to me, Rebbe, did you ever see Hafuna? It was a journal first released by the young yeshiva couple who came from Mir in 1947. And many of them, there were several hundred, only about 40 articles at most. I just wanted you to read who was here. We had other Rebbe, of course, militias and fishing. Hope I didn't miss it. They came here. They came here. He came in 47, the second wave. That was the largest wave. And it's true, I think afraid of this going away. But our people make valid names. But our Shai Shapiro, not just be the follower, Shefter. And then right after that, the Rebbe Chazan. Then after Rabbi Friday Mordechai Ginsburg, he was Chofetz Chaim's son-in-law. He was a brother. He died very young. And that's the Rabbi Gershon Yankelewitz. He wrote the Din about it. Officially, Borenstein, who came early, Rabbi Hassid, so that you went back to Arizona to get a great relationship. So 94, 35, and 7. And we feel pride among them group. Stellar group of Gershon's number as well. It was historic. A remarkable age, he understood the age. I remember the last time he spoke here at Base Meadows. First time I heard, he spoke in English. And he spoke in a perfect English. Without error. That was remarkable. And the cupboard the young men showed him, the cupboard Yeshiva had there, could not have escaped. I want to just tell you the last story between us, because as serious as he was, and he was a man of strength, and I remember various meetings, if he was not happy with what was transpiring, he would say it. He didn't dwell on it, but he let us all know he wasn't happy about it. And that was even in the time of the Belgian and the Lubcza. And it may be he also studied, although I think that the Belgian was already in Slum. As far as I remember, he started at Slaughter, and from Slaughter he went to Radin, and from Radin he went to Mir, and from Mir he came here. And we were sitting down before the We were sitting down before the in the annex. It's a room across the old base medrash, the Harry Fisher base medrash, because there we had an ambulatory before the Chagas for the last 1 year, 4 or 5 months ago. And we all had to take special seats. Each seat was assigned to us because we were going to have to line up for the opening march into the auditorium. And you heard we had over 250 Talmudim who received Smith at one time. And we have Kohelim here, it's exactly the same, many places. And he said, "Ihr wisst, was ich wünsche? Do you know what I wish you have?" They said, "No." Ich wünsche, als ich so bleiben. In the grace of meine Jahre. I wish that you will live and reach my years. And then with the traditional comedic moment of silence, he said, "In the Mir Yeshiva, il does then was one. And please God, I should see it too." You want to know his sense of humor. He had a great sense of humor. Sense of always counts. I want you to know that President Joel began with a passage that I was one of the most important things. The passage of Ray. Ray or nothing the thing. I don't. Russell. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. The Fisher Nemar, so 3 says. The Fisher Nemar, Chaim, Amos, is after the level. Rochbachol. Samuel Young, you sell oil, Gossa, Purple, name, shape, rocket. Derech HaChaim and Derech HaMoves. Nelech be'ezeh me'en shiur say. He says in Torah, I give you life, death. I give you blessing and the Torah. Pray that Mir Yeshiva say, well, he gives us a choice. He gives us a choice to take a bracha or take a Torah. He gives us a choice to take life or death. And what kind of choices? Who would do anything else but do it? Take the bracha and take life. And so he came and he said, Talmud Lomar, Ubocharta b'chayim. And you should accept and take life. He looked like he lived every moment. Together with his dear wife. She was the daughter of Zablina Lord. And I should mention that he was very close to my father. My father never used his word. His name was Yankelewitz. My father always called him Zablina Lord. I didn't know until today why Zablina was so important. Because Zablina was the original shtetl where the Yitzchak O'Connor was alone because before he came to Yeshiva Sabin Yitzchak O'Connor. That's why he called it Zablina Lord. And it says over there, and this is very important, that was among his greatest, if not his greatest accomplishment. In addition to what he did, Tzibur of the Am Yisrael. V'ocharta b'chayim, v'mantichya, you shall choose life so that you shall live. The people can live, they don't have life. I saw you, v'zaracha, and your seed, and he achieved it in the fullest sense. English Muslim. Sure.
Rabbi Yankelewitz. Someone mentioned that doesn't wish to say it's hard to go the narrator Rosh Yeshiva is here. Well, we would start in this kind of a situation. The words that ring in my ears. We must cry. Hope that my Father, or any kafaras b'shkodai, will lead us to Mashiach. As the Arichas Yomim continued, and the service are going on in Klal Yisrael, we were sure that we would end up being the greeters of Mashiach. And he would be with us even more. The last words that he said were somewhere in the capital of Al Tzion and Davening. In the middle of Al Tzion, that was when he fell over, bent over, and that was the last he heard from him, anybody heard from him. You heard that this was a man who went through First World War, Second World War. It's traditional to start with the words Hashem Lasan, Hashem Lakach, Yishim Hashem Levaya. It usually comes out to be sort of a half thank you. You gave, you took, so we can't complain about the taking because you gave. But that's not the way it is here. You gave, and you gave, and you gave. The Eibshter gave us, and gave us and kept giving and kept giving and kept giving. And the only question is, so why weren't we zeichet to be as Mashiach? So we have to rethink our ways. And for that, we got faith. But in Cotton, we don't need to cry, except to think back, what did he stand for, and put it into our lives, and we have to live it. The Gemara in several places in Shas, the Talmidim asked the Rebbe, what was the background for your Arichas Yomim? You've heard already about my father's sneeze. You've heard about his simplicity. When he came over to me this morning, I said to me the whole reasons from Pelham Park, from the neighborhood where we grew up, he said the whole reason why I admired your father was because of his passions. He didn't walk around with airs. He could have been the Rav of many, many shuls, he gave it up. He could have been a Rosh Yeshiva anywhere. All he cared about was his Talmidim when it came to teaching. And he loved them. He remembered each of his Talmidim. I once called him up. I met a Talmud of his. And he wasn't even 100% sure that he had my father as a Rebbe, but he remembered having a shaykhs to him. I picked up the phone and I called up to remember this and this. And my mother Shalom answered the phone. And he says from the background, zwei Brüder, the Tate Evento, that's it. Right away he knew. The brother was going to father this, the father was doing this, the mother we know from here. Every Talmud he knew. It was as if he had an iPad, we could go push the button and be able to see exactly where each Talmud was. And he would greet them when they came back. In Shul, one of his Talmidim came, who had grown up in the neighborhood, and now was a Russian judge. You may have seen in the newspapers the entire, years ago in one of the magazines, he wrote over the entire conversation. There was a judge, and he turned to him and said to him, do you know how you're judging? Do you understand what the Gemara tells you about your judging? And I was there when that conversation went on. It went on for a long time, with such a halva for the Talmud. This is why, any time I met somebody, oh, your father, oh yeah, I remember him. There was such halva. This was his children. He had gone through so much sorrows. He had lost his parents, whose yahrzeit is today, and his entire siblings, except for one that he did not meet until many years later, when his children were killed. And here he was to rebuild the mishpacha, to build the mishpacha in a Torah way. Lo yamushu l'picham k'mizaracham k'zera zarach. The Torah continued through 3 generations already and 4. That was also his last words. In Shul, he sat up front in Shul, not because he was a Shiva, a Rebbe, a Rav. He sat in front in Shul because that meant that he could stand with his face to the front and daven. That's all he wanted to do. To daven, talk to the Eibishter, I'm going to say what I have to say. What's going on in the shul doesn't make a difference. You daven. That's it. And the people in the shul would look up to him the whole time. He said a shiur with the mincha and ma'ariv for 60 years, over 60 years. The mincha and ma'ariv and mishnayos. He was Messiah Mishnayos, I don't know how many times. He started with Yidden who were out to Europe, Yidden, and he reached them, and now he's saying shiur to push the American people, many of which may have not even gone to yeshiva. We had a minion in Pelham Park that was called the Boys Minion. It was a minion that was founded by from our area, and the one person who was allowed to come to daven in that minion, who was not the Bach, was my father, except special exceptions for certain Einstein characters. And the reason why my father was there was to be the example for all the boys that were happening there. He could have been a Rabbi many shuls. He was offered positions as a Rabbi, but that's not one. In the shul, when someone would come to ask him a shiur, point to the other side, in here, point over to here, wherever Reuben or Hashem was to sit. And of course, the person would go to Rabbi Reuben and ask him the shiur, and Rabbi Reuben would say, "What's next to Mir? Go to Rabbi Yankelewitz." That's how we did it. This was the code for the road. A road. Okay. That was the code that we gave to the right person. He had zehirus in everything. A mitzvah to him was a mitzvah. I have to do it. Even when it was old, precious Masay, we were together in the mountains, and carrying my father to the shul, he has to stop to wash the netilas yadayim. You could be semikhah on the netilas yadayim from the morning. There are enough shittas at home that you could be semikhah on the netilas yadayim if you wash your hands. No. I remember when we walked into shul, the first place we went in was to wash the netilas yadayim. Even if it came out right, not long after the netilas yadayim, that was abuse. Those are the things that we need to learn in his life. I have no idea. In the Mefarshim, there is a question. There's something called Arichas Yomim V'Shani. So what's Arichas Yomim and what's Arichas Yomim V'Shani? Arichas Shani obviously means a person gets to live a long life. Arichas Yomim means his days are long. That means that the day is full of so many things that get accomplished. That day can be full and can be almost long and not pass in no time because so many things are accomplished. If there was a sefer in front of him, he sat and learned hours. Hours on end without a stop. Even to this day. All the way, even in his Shanghai, even in his old age. He opened the sefer, he sat and moved from one sefer to the other and learned and learned and learned. But he had time for his house. He had time to raise us. He had time to carry us on the shoulder and push us on the swings. He had time to help my mother wash the dishes. He had time to paint the house. The Rebbe doesn't have a big parnasa. I remember the first time I saw the bill for how much he paid for us to go to Yeshiva. I was shocked at how little they were charging. And that meant how little he was making. Paint the house, plaster, mow the lawn, cut the bushes. And everything was done with an exactness. It had to be done just 100% right. And that takes time. But there was time for it because he had a Arichas Yomim. That they had time for this too. That they had time to play a chess game with my uncle and Vashalom. And it was an open chess game. Open chess game means you cannot challenge a person and hide what you're doing. If you want to take a piece, you have to say, I'm going to take it. Which makes the challenge so much stronger. You had time for that, and this was a war of the mind. This is called Arichas Yomim. Because you made that one. Not that Arichas Shani, that's a different question. I think I have the answer. The New York Times reported, I have it at home, 1933, not too far from this time of the year, the passing of one Israel Mayor Kagan Lubcza, the person whom my father, a naked person, discovered called the Rebbe, Chofetz Chaim. And it says 105. Chofetz Chaim was lived to 105. He lived Chofetz Chaim. We were baking matzahs, and we would insist on washing, on pouring the water. So a few years ago, I said, Papa, Was wird gewinnt, als gefährlich haben wir eigentlich nicht gelassen, Kisten der Wasser. Because they were having a hard time. The people who did it their way, they don't want a stranger pouring the water. You can do this, you can do that, you insist on staying by the Matzah, Kashitas a rush. But what would be so bad, I guess? He said, Father, the Rebbe, but he goes in Wasser. The Rebbe was the one who poured the water. I said, was gesehen, the Rebbe gegossen the Wasser? He said, yes, I saw when he poured the water. When is das gesehen? When was it? He said, the letzte Jahr. Now imagine, Chofetz Chaim, according to this, was 105, and the family says he was a little older than papers. And he poured the water himself, the last year of his life. So to my father. And he added one line, he said, und der Chofetz Chaim gesagt, Shem Matzahs Mitzvah, jeder Mal was gegossen. And the Chofetz Chaim said, Shem Matzahs Mitzvah, each time he poured. There's a sign in all the bakeries now that says L'Shem Matzahs Mitzvah, but that's not the same. And that was my father's Akbala. It has to be perfect. It has to be done kishita, the way it should be. In Shul, Israel on Parkway, he was close to everybody at Shul. It didn't make a difference who he was. Remember, he's not the Rav. He knew what each person was doing. He knew how his wife was doing. He knew what his children and his grandchildren were doing. And after Shul, he would walk by and say hello to everybody that there was coming over. There was no person for which he didn't have a house. And it didn't make a difference. He had a kesher with Satmar people in Pelham Parkway. He had a kesher with Chabad people in Pelham Parkway. He had a kesher with Young Israel people. He had a kesher with a person if he was frum or if it was not frum. It didn't make a difference to him. And his kesher to the Mishpacha was the same way, most of which had come at the time of the turn of the last century and had very little kesher for the Yiddish. Everybody respected him. They all looked up to him. He made sure to say hello to all the neighbors, even the goyim. The Italians down the block knew that you didn't walk down the block without hearing a hello from him. He kept a kesher with his buddies from Yeshiva. I tell us about to be an hour. I remember he'd pick up the phone and one of his friends would call up, "Hey, Seravanshul!" No, not just, hello, Ravanshul Lighthouse. Hey, Seravanshul, great Ravanshul. That was the greeting. That was his cover for his friends. He had a bracha that he gave. People came to him for a bracha. He said, so someone asked for a bracha, that's what he gave. Baruch Hashem, he has not just for children, but grandchildren already, and we hope great grandchildren. For the family who was also extremely young. 2 years ago, this is already Shvat. My son, Moshe Yehuda, was having Haskos Gemara, and we asked him if he would come, like any other Zaidi, to come to the Haskos Gemara. Okay. That meant that his driver, Louis, we have to thank for all his special help, and at the same time, we have to thank the Yeshiva here for ensuring that he was able to continue learning. And tell me, that's right. We took him back and forth every day in the more recent years, and we came to Yeshiva. And in general, usually Paisman does by the Aksanya, but we're in the Aksanya already, and we're the Aksanya was the place where he was able to be married spirit till the end. And Yeshiva held on to him. And we're mechabed him. And allowed him to continue the dearest thing in his life. Even with less Talmidim each year. It gave him the chiyas. It made a giant for him to continue till the last year of his life, and including the last year of his life. Anyway, by Moshe Yehuda's Aschalas Gemara, he agreed to come. Erev Shabbos, we get a telephone. The guest speaker at the Aschalas Gemara is not able to come. So we had one speaker who was here, who was going to speak, but could my father just say a few words instead of the missing speaker. The main guest speaker was there. Was Alston, has his son, his episode. Yeah, I think so. I have to speak. So this Pasayden. Can't speak, Masazayden, you are a grandfather to talk to your grandfather. So finally, with a little urging, because again, we didn't put out ears, he said, all right, I'll tell you what. I'll speak 5 minutes and I'll speak Yiddish. And that railed him. So he came to the Sunday morning, his whole nerve, and I'm getting ready to hold him, to let him stand, to be able to speak. I got ready to stand by the side with a second microphone, so everything that he's going to say, every few sentences, I can translate, so everybody will be able to understand what he said. He started in English. He didn't speak 5 minutes. He spoke 15 minutes, and there was not one eye that was not on him. He told stories from Chofetz Chaim. He told all about how the chashivas of learning was, and everybody's there. This man learned by the Chofetz Chaim, heard him say shmuz and Shabbos after Shabbos, and now he's telling us. And when he said it, it was as if the Chofetz Chaim was standing there right now and saying it over. Just as he would say when he would tell over for a biruch, his mashgiach in the year. And I remember at Simchas Torah, he would say over how the biruchim would dance by the Simchas Torah, and he would go, and you could see the simcha, how he did it, what? I clapped like this, right? Whichever way he remembered these, it was a line in front of him. Straight in front of him, as if he's reliving every single detail. When someone tells a story of his own, it's himself coming. And when he would tell a story from the Chofetz Chaim, it was himself coming. And that was what we grew up with. He was the Chofetz Chaim. He was a Biruchim of Mir. He was the entire Torah of pre-war Europe. In this yeshiva, he was the remainder of the entire European Torah, and no other yeshiva in the past, I think it's 10 years, has had a remaining Rosh Yeshiva from the old European Rosh Yeshivas. I believe that was the way it was. For many, many years already. The Eibishter decided to give him that Arichas Yamim, so that there could be that semikhah here, and I see it was there. And for this, I thank the administration here for being able to work with it and spread it. And now it goes online across the entire world. And you can just dial, push the button, and you see and you hear everything that he said from those days. Now you see what it meant, whether it was for the Shkocha, or whether it was for the Yeshiva, whether it was for the Shul, whether it was for the neighbors, it was always giving over for his. At this opportunity, I just want to take a moment to ask Mechiva, because of the siblings that, myself and my siblings, the way things worked out over the years, I was not as much close to my parents. I was in Lubcza. They were in New York. And somehow my brothers and sisters put in much, much more effort than we did. Everybody tried. And Brother Moshe was there every Sunday in order to make sure the house was taken care of, took care of the moments. My sister Beryl took care of arranging who does what. And she's a Chicago. My sister Gitti made an apartment for my parents and had to be able to deal with whatever needs there were when I had to be there week after week after week. Or my brother Yankel and his Rebbe Sarah, who had to do Yontiv and Baruch Hashem, there was a Spanish next door. That meant that all the needs had to be taken care of. And they all accomplished. I wish I could have done also. RIETS is attached to keep it out of the Eibishter should give them. The RIETS is right by the top. Someone said to me yesterday, when they were saying goodbye in the Anglo Academy, someone said to me yesterday, the words of a geisis are a tzavot. The words of a person who is dying are a will. And one must follow the words of a geisis. Without a king, the Gemara says. Anything a geisis says, you must do. What were the last words of my father? V'yata kadosh yashei tehillas Yisrael. You Eibishter, kadosh yashei tehillas Yisrael. Uva l'tzion goyel. Yiratzon, Yeniske, Yenivke, Yenirash, Haiva, Uvracha, Lishnei, Yevonis, Hamashiach, Uchagei, Ba'ilom, Abor, Yula Amoris Lanetzach. Moshe Fuchs, Congregation Sons of Israel in the Rome. Was 1974, I believe, and I was entering Yeshiva University, Yeshiva College, and RIETS right across the street. And my father, zt'l, was very concerned about what shiur I was going to end up in. Because I was living in the ravages of the South Bronx, and just because you're a son of a rabbi, that doesn't make you a rabbi. And I remember finding out through, I believe it was Rabbi Chalak, that I was placed in Rabbi Yankelowicz's shiur. I remember I came back, I told my father, and he was very happy, very excited. To the extent, he called up Rabbi Yankelewitz, that's how, and he said, "Nem care for my Zon Moshe." And right across the street, room 307, which is hard to believe that I still remember that. First time that I met my Rebbe, he greeted me to say Rapanim Yafos. personal stories today. Not too many Gemaras, not too many Mishnayos, just about my life with my Rebbe, Rabbi Yankelewitz. I have the privilege, I had this zt'l, not only Rabbi Yankelewitz being my Rebbe, but I was also his rabbi. And I had this zt'l of taking him to shul by car every day. And that's a great job. I wish everybody in this room could have that zt'l. And whenever I came, I picked him up. He was always out there waiting. Whether it be with his Rebbitzin, Lubcza, or with Aaron, who we have to mention here, did so much for Rabbi Yankelewitz in his later years. He always greeted me, good morning. And believe it or not, one of the first things he always asked me was, what's doing in Israel? Unbelievable. One time, I was listening to the Jewish music hour in the morning. He said to me, why are you listening to that? You should be listening to what's doing in Israel. And it just, ever he entered that car, I remember how he started me off in room 307, and how, frankly, I don't know if I would be here today as a Rav if he didn't start me off in room 307. And I remember when my father, who suffered the same consequences as Rabbi Yankelewitz for losing his whole family during the Shoah, to always call up Rabbi Yankelewitz and say, how's his Moshel doing? And there was a quick response, and that was before the days of cell phones. And they would go on and talk about learning for hours and hours on the phone. About this Gemara, that Gemara. I think one thing they had in common, they both had photogenic minds, and they could remember each daf and each Gemara. So that was my beginning here, which ultimately led to my semikhah. Pelham Parkway. Here I guess I am representing Pelham Parkway. I'll tell you one thing that Rabbi Rubin, that's how once told me. He said to me, Fuchs, you know, I'm busy with the state, kashrus, and I can't be in shul every day, but I'm so happy that Rabbi Yankelewitz is there giving shiur every day. When he gave that shiur, and every once in a while he used to run over there, just listen to the Mishnayos. It was really done. Done, as David said. Whoever sat at that table, they could understand the shiur. You know, this week, Pirkei Avos starts off with Kol Ha'osek B'Torah Lishma. Maybe that last word, Lishma, categorizes what Rabbi Yankelewitz did for me as a Talmud, did for Pelham Parkway as a neighborhood, and did for Yeshiva University as a Rebbe. Whatever he did was Lishma. Whatever somebody did for him was Lishma. And I know how I felt so bad certain times that thanks to the Throgneck Bridge and the Whitestone Bridge, I was late in picking him up. This was years ago. I used to call him. I said, I'm 10 minutes late. I'm 15 minutes late. What did he say? I'll walk. Zachar Halifa. And just recently, somebody asked me, one of his Talmidim, this must have been in June, yeah, June.
somebody asked me, how's Rabbi Yankelewitz doing? And I said, Baruch Hashem, he must be doing well, because I made a mistake in the landing today, and he corrected me with the hearing aid and with everything. And one of the biggest honors I had was my shul just had their 100th anniversary, which in the Bronx is right up there with Nisan. And who was sitting in the first row? My Rebbe, Rabbi Yankelewitz, together with the mishpacha. I looked down. It was an emotional thing for me, because my father was nifter in 82. I myself acquired my Rebbe as a second father. And he allowed me to keep the doors of that shul open. And like it says in Pirkei Avos, after Kol Osei B'Torah Lishma, Zochel L'Dvarim Harvei. And what do you get? The Nenem Mehenu, Eitzah Toshia Bina Mivura. I got from Rabbi Yankelewitz, as all his Talmidim got, counsel, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Whenever I had a shiur, went straight to Rabbi Yankelewitz, and I got the answer. I mentioned this at the Rebbe's Levaya, but I think I have to mention it again. One of the most beautiful things that he did for the Talmidim was he always used to make a Hanukkah party. With all the great caterers in the world, I can tell you that Rebbe Bluma outdid them all. And he used to make sure that every Talmud was there, going to the Bronx to make sure they participated with the student. And on the other side of the fence, he came into the car, Hanukkah time. I hope I'm right, President Joe. He came in Hanukkah time, and he said to me, you know where I was last night? In President Joel's house. For a Hanukkah gathering, I believe, and I asked him how it was, and the word that he used a lot, beautiful. That's a word he really, really used a lot. Beautiful. So, you can understand that my emotions today, I just asked somebody the other day, when is Rabbi Yankelewitz coming back from the mountains? When I got that phone call yesterday, and I realized he was not coming back from the mountains, not only am I going to miss somebody to correct me when I land, I'm going to miss my Rebbe, I'm going to miss somebody that sat in the front row, and I'm going to miss somebody that gave covet to everybody. And I'm going to miss coming up to Waring Avenue and parking the car and waiting for my Rebbe. I'd just like to end by, I felt I was an external member of the family. And for the internal members here, I hope I did everything I could do for him. I really, really tried. The yeshiva here, Dr. Liam, President Joel, and all the Rabbeim here, I thank you for allowing me to have him as a Rebbe, for allowing me to speak here today. And a few people, last but not least, that I want to point out from Pelham Parkland. If I miss anybody, please forgive me. Avi Glasser, Louis Atlas, Elliot Steinberg, and Kenny Gelman, who made sure that the Rebbe was transported to shul within the neighborhood. The Rebbe, which Rav David said, could have moved to a different neighborhood, could have abandoned Pelham Parkway, and said, this is my makom, this is where I want to stay. You don't know us, that's up.
The last testament, some of our regular members.
A few words of perspective as someone who joined the family a little later, not quite 30 years ago. And I really just like to stress 2 points over here that perhaps bring together some of what we've heard today. I would say that one thing that we should get the sense of from all the little different pieces I've been hearing is the concept of shleimus. Now, shleimus is a great quest in Torah and Musar. And there are many people who achieve shleimus in this or in that. Shleimus in the Torah that they learn. And that's one kind of shleimus. There's shleimus in their midos, another kind of shleimus. Shleimus in their Vadam and al-Makom, their Avodas Hashem. Shleimus in their Vedam al-Chaverim. But few and far between are the people who master shleimus in real shleimus. In everything. In everything. Rabbi Yosef the Gemara says about the day Matan Torah, Lav Hai Yoma, if not for this day, Kama Yosef Ika B'Shukah. How many Yosefs could be out there? And the simple shot is that if not for the day of Matan Torah, then I'd just be another Yosef, another Joe Schmo in the street. But I heard the name of Rav Ruderman that he said that's not the shot. Shot is, Ilav Hayoma, if not for this day, people tend to compartmentalize their lives. There's a person that I am at work, there's a person that I am at home, there's a person that I am with my friends, there's a person that I am with my children. And different things and different rules apply in each situation. He said, Ilav Hayoma, if not for this day of Torah, a matter Torah that pulls together all of the different facets of my life and all the different pieces of my life. That Torah permeates every single aspect of my life, wherever I may be and with whoever I may find myself. That's what Torah is, that it wouldn't be a Kama Yosef, it wouldn't be a Yosef here and a Yosef there, different Yosefs, but it becomes one Yosef. And I think that that's one thing we can get the sense of from what we've heard about my father-in-law, Zecher Tzadik Levaya. That he was one person wherever he was. The Torah that he learned, and the Musar that he lived by, and it was so beautiful to hear that that was the one thing that he brought up at that meeting, was the idea of Musar, because that's who he was. Wherever he was the Talmid Chacham, the Gadol B'Torah, but also the Baal Mikveh that he brought with him wherever he was. About the learning, we know that he never ever abandoned learning. Never, never, ever was it put aside in a way that it disconnects from it. Tosas and Bracha says that's the reason why Brachas Torah only has to be said once in the morning. Even though you go up and doing other things during the day, is because you never mesiach das from learning. That whatever it is that you're doing is a temporary break from your learning, and when you're done with that, you get back to your learning. Torah was everything to him. But when I got married, I knew that I was marrying a Rosh Yeshiva's daughter. And I knew I was marrying to Rosh Yeshiva's family. And it was somewhat of a chiddush to me to see the Rosh Yeshiva with the apron around his waist washing dishes. And my wife would say, I still have a thing or two to learn about that. But that was my shirt. And that the Rosh Yeshiva would trim those bushes, which was mentioned, but he didn't just trim bushes. I mean, he could have opened up the whole of the business, because those bushes were perfectly spherical, amazing, perfect circles. Because whatever he did, he had to do in a way that really exemplified shleimus, real perfection. But the way he dealt with people, and as was mentioned, but it needs to be understood that this is because he brought the Musar, Abi Baruchim, and the Musar that he was, the Musar that he was everywhere, and whoever it was that he was dealing with. I remember once I came to visit him here, I at the yeshiva and walking around, and it was amazing how everybody greeted him because they knew that he would greet them. Whether it was the janitor, the workers, whoever it was, everybody knew him, and he knew everybody by name. Because that's what he was with people. Because there's no distinction made between if I'm someone who learns, and if someone who teaches, and if someone who loves my talmidim, it doesn't mean it should come at the expense of people who are not necessarily my talmidim, of people who are not necessarily like me. And the cover that he gave to others, and the nivus that he always showed, to me it was particularly uncomfortable when my in-laws would come to my house. And for me, it was a double question. It was the most obvious thing in the world that he would sit at the head of the table. But he absolutely refused. And it was obvious to me that he'd be the one to make Kiddush. No, the Baal Buz has to make Kiddush. Baal Buz has the one going to say Hamaytzi. Because that's the way it was. That's the way it was with him, and I never ever succeeded to get him to budge. In that sense, he was very stubborn. You could never get him to sit at the head of the table. No matter what. He would have been sitting there waiting to eat. So the totality of the person, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Maggid Shiur, the learner, the father, who would help his daughter, my wife in her younger years, prepare her lessons for teaching, the one who would play with his grandchildren, and he was married less than 30 years, he was over 60 then also, and I have pictures of him with my adult children on the floor playing Lego with him. And we recently had the opportunity to view some videos that we took in those years of swinging the children around. The Limud Torah and the teaching and Havatas Torah in no way took away from the family person that he was. And it's because of that those same children grew up to master his learning and to share all the learning with him and to appreciate who he was as a God of the Torah. Continue with children, with grandchildren, and with great-grandchildren. And that's the privilege that we have over all these years. But I also think there's one thing that we need to take with us today, because if we don't, then I'm afraid Chas V'Shalom will be held against us. Because all of those who were touched by my father-in-law over all these years have something that they have to give to future generations. Rabbi Yankelewitz, when he spoke about the greatness of the Vilna Gaon, the great genius and amazing personalities of the Vilna Gaon, he said, lest we think the Vilna Gaon was ancient history, the Chofetz Chaim yet saw people who saw the Vilna Gaon. And with that, he tried to bring the Vilna Gaon down to us. But we have my father-in-law who was a Talmud of the Chofetz Chaim, who saw somebody, saw the Vilna Gaon. He speaks to young people today that think the Chofetz Chaim was ancient history and may as well have been a Rishon. And we have to let young people know that this was recent history. You have to bring this history down to them. We have to compress it. And therefore, if we knew my father-in-law, we can say, well, we saw somebody who saw the Chofetz Chaim, who saw somebody, saw the Vilna Gaon. And with that, we bring the godless of earlier years down to a world that may not be so familiar with it, so that young people today can aspire for greatness as well. So if we walk away, as we say goodbye, we have to take all this with us. The family, the talmidim, the colleagues, all of us. Take away this concept of shleimus. That no area and aspect of Torah is supposed to come at the expense of another. No area of Adam L'Chaver should come at the expense of someone else's Adam L'Chaver. We have to be learners, we have to be teachers, we have to be husbands, we have to be parents, we have to be grandparents, we have to be great-grandparents. That's number one. And number two, to take with us this idea that we were touched by greatness. Tell young people we were touched by greatness, because we were over to know him, but the next generation did not have his chus, but they had his chus to know us who knew him. And who knew him, who knew the Chofetz Chaim, so somebody saw the Vilna Gaon. And to keep that greatness going, and to create shifos, to create and inspire the next generation to aspire to that greatness as well.
I have just one of the Einiglich, high and gross. Say a few words. Both sides, just think of it as one short minute for every year. This beautiful life.
I just want to take this last opportunity, since I'm not going to get another one, to talk to you. And to tell you all the things I wish I always would have said to you. Lady, I know I speak for myself and I speak for all of your grandchildren. We love you to pieces. We love you so much, we care for you so much. And we know that you love us, every single one of us so much. And we saw it. I remember when we were driving from Chicago, when we would get to the door, you'd be waiting there to stand, you were waiting there to greet us, and I waited for your smile. You had the warmest, sweetest smile that anyone ever could imagine. We lived for that smile. One day we walked in the door and you gave us that smile and that hug and a kiss. And we knew that we were in a very special place on Radin Avenue. I remember during the summer we had such a good time in your house. I remember being in the backyard and we were getting swimming. We filled the swimming pool for us. And it was freezing cold water. We stand against the pool. We all stand there shivering. No one wants to sit down. And he would watch us and he would say, well, who is brave? Who is brave? And suddenly everyone splash, 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 we're all in the water. And he had this, it was very solemn, who is brave? Okay, you saw that twinkle behind your eyes, like, you always had the twinkle in your eyes. I remember how you would take us to play ball on the Parkway, and we didn't know, you were in your 80s already, but I think no difference, I had no idea. And you played soccer with us, and you told us when you were a little boy, you also used to play soccer. You were a good soccer player. I remember when my sister came in once, and after playing outside, and her face was flushed and tanned from the sun, and you said to her, it looks like you have all the sun in your face. That was, all these little comments that we appreciated so much, that made you, that endeared you to us so much, so much. I remember we would ask you, Lady, so how are you? Now that you're around, great. On Rosh Hashanah, this past Rosh Hashanah, I spent Rosh Hashanah with you at Rabbi Yankelewitz house. And I wanted to wish you Simsim Teva, and he wished me back, and he said, remember, that's my name, so made sure to mention it again. I remember, I wasn't there, but I heard about it afterwards, that when you came into Chicago for the shul dinner, and so one of the speakers mentioned my parents, and how my mother, especially my mother and my father, were both amazing people, and you got up and you started clapping. And you clapped and clapped, and you told everyone to get up, and everyone had to clap and clap and clap. It was your daughter that was being mentioned, and she deserved it, and you were so proud of all your children and your grandchildren. I remember how my mother would tell me that she was going to focus with her and prepare her lessons with her on the phone. And after a day of teaching, when she was still living in the Bronx, she would come home, take the bus home, and you'd meet her by the bus stop, and you would carry her bags for her. And she would ask you all the questions that students ask in classes that she didn't know, and answer the questions, and walk with her, and take care of her. And I remember going through the shul on Shabbos when we stayed in the Bronx, and you always left early to make sure that you would have, I don't think I ever saw you in a rush. And you walked with us at a slow, measured pace. You always made sure to leave so that we should get to down early. And you would stand in that corner by the stage over there, in the little corner over there, and you'd stand, which meant that's would be perfectly still. And when you got to Kedusha by Kaddish, I remember you were Kaddish. You had a certain way of saying it, like every word was perfectly enunciated, and full heart. And by Krias Torah, who can forget to mention, by Krias Torah, throughout your 104th year, you still got every Krias Torah. And people will see it and say, how can I sit down? They just stand, this person stands. Everything. I remember picking him up and helping him, and hopefully being understanding so many times. I remember working with you and watching your hand, and as a little boy, it was always obvious to me that your hands were bent out of shape to fit the Gemara. It was obvious. The way that the thumbs and the fingers, it was from years and years of holding a Gemara and pointing at the place. Whether it was or wasn't done, no, but it was, to us as children, it was clear that, because that was what he was, that he always I remember how you bought a set of Mishnayos with Pirush HaKahati for every bar mitzvah about her. And you learned with the Pirush, and whenever you got to the word ground in the Pirush HaKahati, you translated as the truth is. And I remember always thinking that what words could fit you better than the truth is. Everything you did was with truth, and the passions, as it was mentioned before, and never fucked up, never trying to draw attention, never trying to do any shtick. You dive in your board, you worked in by your standard. There was never any trying to be the center of attention in any way, shape, or form. I remember you always full of semikhah, always full of semikhah. And it wasn't a semikhah that so many people have today, which was from some cheap little jokes, and it came from something very deep inside. The satisfaction of who you were and you're learning and you're davening and you're serving at time. I always remember your semikhah by passing us. Who can forget when you go into the middle to dance in front of the chas and the kala, and you make sure that I hope about it, because the chas and the kala will be in the middle, and the kala will be brought over to you to dance in front of her, and you had a beaming smile on your face. And I remember Zadie, how much I davened. You know how many times I davened in Yeshiva and I passed enough? I could be there. I was so many times. And now you go. You go there. I remember that at the middle, I was protecting my chest. It hugged me so tight. I thought you would never leave us. I thought you would never let us go. Now you go. I remember one last thing that when we would leave your house after those trips, you stand by the door and say, L'chaim L'shalom. L'chaim L'shalom. L'chaim L'shalom. Miracles for all of us, and I think that's everything.
Let me just give a sacking with one thought. 6 weeks ago, my wife and I sent an invitation to Rabbi Yankelewitz to my daughter's wedding last night. And I didn't expect him to respond. It was a courtesy. But he did respond, because that's who he was. And he said that he was so sorry that he wouldn't be able to be there, but that he would be away. He just didn't know how far away he would be by 6:30 last night. In a sense, Rabbi Yankelewitz was always away. Yosef says in Ibn Ezer that Gershon and Gershon is not the same name. I'll take the liberty. Vatele ben vayikra shemo Gershon ki amar ger hayiti be'eretz nochriya. Rabbi Yankelewitz, you were a ger be'eretz nochriya. There was something about you that was otherworldly. You were always just a ger in this world. Not just a ger in the United States, planted here, replanted from Europe. But somehow this world is just not a perfect enough place for you to really be a toshav. For all of these years, ger hayita, you were a ger in an Eretz Levaya that was a Lam Hazeh. Now you are a toshav. We call Olam Haba, Olam Ha'emes. This world is a world of sheker. You have always lived, in a certain sense, in Olam Ha'emes. And now you are in the one place that you can feel fully comfortable. In the Olam Ha'emes. When President Joel mentioned Rabbi Yankelowitz's presence at the semikhah, how he was held up on both sides by Rosh Yeshiva so he could stand for the Musmachim. He stood at the end of the line. Every Musmach goes up on the stage in Lamport Auditorium and the Rav used to speak. He walks across the stage and he shakes the hands of the Rosh Yeshiva. And at the end of the line was Rabbi Yankelewitz. And I couldn't help but think that was Masorah from the Vilna Gaon to the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Yankelewitz, was being passed to each one of his neighborhood. It is now for us. You are in your world. It is now for us incredible mishpacha that you leave behind. Thousands of talmidim that you leave behind. It is now up for us to take all that you were and all that you continue to be and to pass that somehow. And Vilna Gaon, the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Gershon Yankelewitz, to a new world of talmidim and Lubcza around the world. Please rise. We recite the shiur and the shiur. Levaya will continue from here to JFK, and Levaya will continue in Eretz Yisrael.